So what's AIPAC?
AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And they didn't start out as a PAC in the sense of a political action committee, but now they have a political action committee. Ostensibly, it's a group of Americans who lobby on behalf of Israel. They're for anything Israel. We haven't had 16 votes in April on the United States in Congress.
So what's AIPAC?
AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And they didn't start out as a PAC in the sense of a political action committee, but now they have a political action committee. Ostensibly, it's a group of Americans who lobby on behalf of Israel. They're for anything Israel. And they're a very effective lobbying group. They get in there. They try to get me to write a white paper as a candidate, for instance, for Congress. They almost get
on what?
On Israel. And I wouldn't do it. And they said, why? And I'm like, I don't do homework for lobbyists, right? I'm like, I didn't like writing term papers at college. I'm not writing one for you.
What did they say?
They said, oh, well, here, just copy Rand Paul's term paper and put your name on it. We'll accept that. And I'm like, no, I'm still not cribbing somebody else's homework to do homework. I'm not turning in my homework for you.
That's what they told me.
You're laughing, but
that's what they said. It's like copy the other guys. Just say what the other guy said. This is almost too bizarre. I mean, we kind of knew. We had a feeling. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. But this is incredible. The revelations that have come out now with this guy. And this is going to snow. This is like the first domino. You can't stop now.
But you know what? I bet I may be the only Republican in Congress who hasn't done homework for AIPAC. And it's just what it is. It's conditioning. They want you to do something very simple and benign, and for them, they don't really grade your term paper. They just want to know that you'll do something for them. And if you'll do something for them as a candidate, you're more likely to do something for them as a congressman when you get in there. So my rift started out in 2020.
So it's like a form of conditioning, really. I mean, I don't want to say brainwashing, but it's conditioning. And like, if over half of these people, a majority, like 51% and above, just stand their ground like this guy and step up and say no, that's it.
12 when I refused to turn in an Israel term paper.
How did they respond to that?
Well, they kind of got in my race a little too late there in the beginning, and because it was hard to tell that I was actually going to win. And when they saw I was going to win, that's when they tried to get me to do the term paper. They didn't have a political action committee at the time. They couldn't spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars against me at that time. It was just sort of like a whisper campaign to try to, hey, don't vote for him, blah, blah, blah.
That's why.
Because at that point, they sensed I wouldn't do what they wanted when I got
But what did
to
they whisper against you? What were they saying about you?
Well, they would do it through, for instance, churches, evangelical churches. They've got an organization called Christians United for Israel. We've sort of co-opted evangelicals. People think it's a grassroots movement in Kentucky. It's actually a top-down movement from AIPAC, so that people who aren't even Jewish.
See what he said there? So it's amazing, and this happens a lot. Not only AIPAC and Israel, like everybody, all the organizations, all the players that are not good for the common people do this type of thing. Where they made it seem like it was a grassroots thing, like from the bottom up, but it was the absolute opposite. Okay, so it was just it only appeared to be a grassroots perception. It's a perception game. Amazing.
Will feel like they've got to support Israel, no matter what. And even if it's a secular state that funds abortions, just sort of forget that part and we've got to fund Israel. So they have networks. So it's more than just about the money.
So you get elected, despite.
See, I don't know. I'm center right, I guess I could call myself, but because most of my audience, most of my work online is it's done in English and it's centered on the US, of course, the most important, the biggest English-speaking nation, quantity, population-wise, and also in terms of importance for the world. But I don't. I mean, I love Trump, not so much now, but still, I'm a Trump fanboy. But I don't necessarily resonate with the American right per se, which I consider to be insane. I wanted to comment. I wanted to stop him there and comment on the fact that he said, well, they support Israel, as in the Christian right wing in America, the Bible Belt type of characters. So they support Israel even though, they're very big on LGBTQ and, abortion, right? They're pro-abortion and etc., which the American Christian right would be against that stuff for the most part, primarily, And when he said that, I had to pause it because I thought what came to me was the left does exactly the same. On the flip side, the other side of the coin, they support the Palestinian cause and the Arab cause and Muslims and Islam in general. And we see this in Europe as well, but especially in America, the American left, which is the most retarded left, most retarded faction or version of leftism on earth in history, as a matter of fact. It's completely insane, right? Completely insane. So anyway, so what they do is they support people who, in certain occasions, in certain countries, they actually throw gay people off buildings and so on, and they support them, okay? Similarly, the American right supports Israel, which is a super, super liberal country. I mean, even though it's been controlled by the right wing for a couple of decades now, roughly. The Likud party, I believe it's called, yeah. I blanked there for a second, but yeah, the Likudniks. So it's insanity, like on both sides, okay? This is why I would call myself, I don't know, like let me make up a faction now, like a made-up term to describe me. Because I can only do it with a made-up term because it's not something that can be categorized. Libertarian right, MAGA, Trump fan, probably. Yeah. So, but it's insane. I mean, there's almost an equal amount of insanity sometimes with the American left and right, but it's just that the left has gone way more insane. Okay, and I resonate with conservatives that are actually educated and intelligent. Okay, look at so many of them. Like how many of them are actually really smart? Like Kelsey Grammer, what's his name? James Wood. What's his name? Angelina Jolie's father, John Voight. Gary Sinise. I'm mentioning the Hollywood people now that come to mind. Kevin Sorbo. None of these people are stupid. They can hold. They can talk about anything. In interviews they can hold a conversation on a broad number of topics. They can debate very nicely. Very well. Jordan Peterson. There's another conservative. He's not American technically, but see where I'm going with this. So these are the types of conservatives I resonate with. Tucker Carlson. Okay. But there is a faction of the right that's almost equally insane as the currently insane American left. Okay, so it just is what it is. I still have faith in Trump, though not as much as I did back in the day when he first came out. back in 2016, but still by a very, very large, very wide margin, he's still the last hope to, how can I put this? He's basically like the last stopgap. Like he's the only thing that's standing between you know the republic, between Western civilization, between law and order, and complete Bolshevik catastrophe. Okay, really.
Their efforts, and then what happens? Do you talk to them after that?
And by the way, let me just put a little footnote here. I'm not against Israel. I've never voted to sanction Israel. I've never said anything particularly, critical of Israel.
I have to say this now, and I mean this. Look at my body language. Look at me right now. I'm going to look you right in the eye. Look at my everything. Just, you'll see that I'm not BSing. I agree with him. Like, I actually, because I'm a student of history, and because Greece, my beloved Greece, which I've moved back here 4.5 years ago. I lived here as a teenager. I was born in Melbourne, Australia. I did primary school there. Then we came to Greece when I was 12, and I lived here till about 21. And then I went back to Melbourne for my studies and so on, and I stayed there for a number of years. But I'm back in Greece now. My beloved Greece. We have very similar issues. It's highly synchronistic. There's a lot of mirroring going on with Greece and Israel when it comes to a lot of ignorant Westerners just randomly telling us on the internet that we don't know our own history and they know better. Okay, the Greek example is the whole thing with Macedonia. Okay, Macedonia, for those who don't know, if you're living under a rock, the past 2,500 years roughly, Macedonia is the northernmost state of Greece. That's where Alexander the Great is from, and so on. So back in the day, the Greeks more or less identified themselves with their state, okay, or their city. So the Spartans, they called themselves Spartans. The Athenians identified themselves as Athenians. The Macedonians called themselves Macedonians, which were the northernmost Greeks. That's where a lot of great Greeks hail from, like Aristotle was another guy that originates from the north of Greece. So anyway, the past, 50 or 70 years or so, there was a massive propaganda campaign on the part of I don't even know what they're called. I don't remember. Like this little country above, this Albanian Slavic group that bordered Macedonia. Okay, and they wanted, it was purely a geopolitical situation. Okay, they just wanted some land. All right, because they didn't have their own place, didn't have their own country, and they came up with this BS. And it went on, it was a decades-long campaign. This BS that, Macedonia actually is not Greek, okay? And the Greeks didn't push back on it for years. And then all of a sudden, almost the entire Western world, especially a lot of Americans, right? Politicians as well, they bought it. And then when they bought that propaganda, which was false, was fake news, fake history, right? And but then you get millions of hordes of NPCs that believe that version of the story. When you could just Google, you can go on Wikipedia for 2 seconds, for for 2 minutes, and you can see that the state of Macedonia was always Greek. No one disputed it. Nobody in the ancient times thought, oh, well, they consider the Macedonians sort of barbarian-ish. That is, the Athenians thought that. But then the Athenians thought the whole fucking world were barbarians. So they looked down on everyone. But they never really, there's no serious, there's no proof at all in the ancient writings, and there's a lot of them. The Greeks wrote down a lot of stuff. We kept a lot of records, right? We left a lot of records for the world to see, and there was never really an instance where we could say, oh, here it is. They didn't really, this is proof that the ancient Greeks didn't really consider Macedonia as part of Greece. I mean, they spoke Greek. Alexander the Great was tutored by Aristotle. Aristotle's teacher was Plato, and his teacher was Socrates. Both of those last two men were from Athens. So I've lived through this, and I've known this story now since my teen years, for 30 plus years now, right? And I see the parallels between the Palestine-Israel thing, as in a lot of people saying that the Bible is false, the Bible is not a historical record. Got to be out of your mind. I mean, I'm not telling people to be religious necessarily, but one thing we can agree on, regardless of the religious thing, is that definitely the Bible is a historical document, okay? You only ignorant or very stubborn people would deny this, okay? If you look into it, you will see that there's like endless independent corroborations and of all the events, not just the Jesus story, everything from the Old Testament to the New Testament. There's many other independent sources that verify and corroborate all of the stuff that's mentioned in the Bible. One of these things being that the people we call Jews today are from a place called Judea. They were called the Judeans, okay? Google it. I Googled it recently. I Wikipedia'd it just to make sure, absolute sure. And I looked at the two maps, the ancient one and the modern one, and Israel today is pretty much in the exact same spot where Judea was back in the day 2,000 years ago, as is Greece. Modern Greece today, my favorite country. I believe it's the number one country on earth, and then America is my second favorite. That's why on my Twitter I've got the American and Greek flag, although I'm not technically American on paper. But I am. My soul is American. So that's what counts. So Greece, the geographical location of modern Greece is more or less identical to the geographical location of ancient Greece. So that's an astounding parallel, okay, a mirroring that's going on with Israel and Greece, because it's kind of like, it's the same thing, okay? Well, not really in a sense that the Greeks were never really kicked out of Greece. There has been a great diaspora, but for other reasons. We just liked traveling and stuff and going all over the world because we're a seafaring nation, and we're economic migrants as well. Second only to the Jews, probably. But, the Jews, they had to. They were forced to, and they were kicked out by the Romans after the revolt, the Jewish revolt in AD 70, I believe, when they destroyed, and then the Romans destroyed the Second Temple. So, anyway, cut a long story short, because I have like lived experience, like one-on-one, like I've lived the situation with, Macedonia is not really Greek, blah, blah, blah. And then like 80% of the world fucking believes it, which is an absolute lie. Similarly, Judea was where the people we call Jews today are from. Now, as to whether, but the Ashkenazi are not real Jews, and it's this whole thing with the Khazars and everything. I'm neither here nor there on that one, and trust me, I've seen all the theories. I fully believe the Khazarian thing for a number of years. Now I'm not too sure. I mean, I am a Libra, so I go back and forth on things. Most of the time I'm a fence sitter, but anyway, regardless, that's the people we call the Jews now, or who wish to claim that they're Jews. their ancestors are from Judea, and that's exactly where the state of Israel is today. So it's not controversial, number one, for them to actually want to go to that place, because it's like if it was a similar situation with the Greeks, we would very much like to actually come back to the actual geographical location from where our ancestors come from. So it's exactly the same thing that they did. And for people to say, oh, well, it's not the, all this insane stuff, it's bullshit. So I had to make a parenthesis there. I didn't even think that I was going to comment on this particularly in this video, which is supposed to be anti-Israel, apparently. But you can be anti a lot of the behavior, a lot of the stuff that the government does and Aipac and all that stuff. But at the same time, you can say, well, no, I don't agree with their methods necessarily of, reclaiming the land, but it is the ancestral homeland. I just wanted to put that out there because, I don't know, I'm just like that. Like if I believe something, if I've studied something and I know it's true and I've got facts to back it up, I'm going to call a spade, okay? Yeah, that's all.
Other than, for instance, right now they've killed 1% of the civilian population in Gaza. That's concerning to me. But so what do they do now?
You get elected 2012. Do you hear from them again?
I vote my conscience, which they won't tolerate. So they ran with their 501c4 before they had a super PAC. They were running educational advocacy ads against me, saying that I'm bad on Israel. They didn't say don't vote for him. They just said he's a bad guy. And so I said, all right, well, you're not welcome in my office anymore, because for years I invited them into my office. Let's talk this through. Let me explain to you. I'm a libertarian leaning Republican. I don't vote for foreign aid for anybody.
It's amazing with the American right. It's so retarded. Like, you can distill, like you can define Republican really in a very simple way, just in one sentence. Conservative politician who worships Israel and believes Israel can do no wrong and does everything in his or her power to help Israel prevail against its enemies no matter what, because it's our greatest ally, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if it was balanced, okay, I was a bit facetious there, exaggerating a little bit for comic effect, but if it was balanced, okay, if it took up 10 or 20% of their energy, fine. But it's almost as if like 80% of all they care about is Israel, the American right, in the past. I mean, it's accelerating. It wasn't always like that. I was going to say it was kind of always like that. No, that's not true. It wasn't always like that. But, we all know neocons, ever since the neocons started becoming a thing, it's just a joke. Like, guys, you really need to understand, people, like 99% of the people who are going to watch this are Americans, right? You do understand the entire world thinks that you're a joke. I just said earlier that America is my second favorite country on earth. I believe it's the second best. Well, to me, it's the second best country on earth, because Greece is my number one. But it's the greatest nation on earth. But really, people think you're a joke when they see this stuff, the political stuff with Israel. Everyone is onto it. Don't think that some amazing revelation is happening now because Elon Musk unleashed free speech on Twitter. And everyone, Candace Owens and everyone is like criticizing Israel and Zionism and stuff. And the Americans are like, oh my God, it's a lot of people on Twitter, because I'm on there a lot lately. I see all these people commenting and saying, oh my God, thanks, I didn't know that. I never knew that. Some guy a couple of days ago I saw, he literally commented something like, wow, I didn't even know what Zionism was till a couple of days ago, but it's all over the place now on Twitter. It's amazing. Like most of you live in a vacuum, like in an information vacuum, a complete information vacuum. The world's looking at it and they're laughing. I mean, what's his name? Andrew Bustamante. I think I got his surname right. That guy with that afro hair, that smart dude. That's that ex CIA guy who goes on the podcasts and tries to whitewash the CIA and everything. So he was saying on one of the podcasts, on that comedian's podcast, what's his name? I don't remember. Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz asked him. He said, "Which is the most ignorant country, the ignorant population on Earth, in your opinion?" And he answered without even thinking, like, Americans. Andrew Schultz was laughing. He's like, "Yes, we're even the best on that in that metric, but." It's not something to laugh about, Literally, how many countries are there on Earth? About 180, around 200, something under 200, I think, somewhere under 200. And for somebody who knows what he's talking about to say that officially Americans are the most ignorant out of all of these countries, what does that tell you? You should not be proud about something like this. So the rest of the world's watching, the other red pill countries are like, what the hell's the matter with these people? How did this even happen, first of all? And we're just looking at it and we're like, finally now they're waking up to what's going on and they think it's this big revelation. We've all, Greeks and whoever else, we've been talking about this for decades. I've been hearing these conversations, the adults were having these convos when I was even before my preteens, when I was 8 or 10 or whatever. I used to remember they were having conversations about Zionism and stuff. And this American guy is like, in the comment that I saw the other day on Twitter, is like, "Oh, thanks for this post, man." Not mine, it was on some other post. Until a couple of days ago, I didn't even know what Zionism was. And I've been hearing the adults in my family get-togethers talking about this since I was like 8 or 10, Some people might freak out now and say, "Oh my God, anti-Semitic influence from his family since he was a kid." What do you mean? It's just political commentary. Don't confuse the two, okay? I mean, if someone says something about, "Oh, well, there's a powerful Muslim lobby in X, in so-and-so country," is that anti-Islamic? Or is it just saying there's a powerful lobby? It's just stating the fact. It's just saying, "Oh, look, this is a bottle." That's not anti-bottle-ish. It's just saying, "Oh, look, it's a bottle." All right, so don't freak the fuck out when people just make statements that are based on things that we can verify. We can verify these things on the internet, okay? So yeah, people are waking up, and it's like, dude, everybody's known except for you. All right, so what I'm saying is, Americans, like the average American, is roughly about a generation or two behind on the red pilling department on about these things. You should have known. Really, you had to wait for him to come out and tell you that they've got every congressman in America has got like an AIPAC handler, pretty much. It was kind of obvious that something like that was going on, but now he basically spelled it out.
So don't be offended when I don't vote for your foreign aid. I don't vote for wars anywhere, so don't be offended if I do that. I'm for free speech, even if it's abhorrent. And we used to talk, but now they're banned from my office.
I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable position to take. It's like, well, sorry, I don't want to do this because, this is my stance. I wouldn't do it for any country. It's not like, see, because they think when you don't help them, you're like, "Oh, you're doing it because you hate us." No, I wouldn't do it for anyone. I just told you, but they don't. They think emotionally because it's like there's a lot of past trauma. It has to see, this whole thing revolves around the fact that there's a lot of ancestral trauma with anything negative. So it induces a knee-jerk fear response. Okay, So that's why there's overreactions by the ADL and so on. All right.
Situation went from bad to worse. This election cycle, they spent $400,000 against me, $90,000 last fall running TV ads in my district and Facebook ads and whatnot, trying to equate me with the squad. And then this most recently, and in fact, as I'm speaking to you today, even though my election is over, they're still running hundreds of thousands of dollars of negative ads.
It's a little weird, though, because as you said, you're probably the only Republican in the House who hasn't done homework for them, who isn't on their side. And that's okay. I mean, you can have, you're a libertarian-oriented Republican from Northern Kentucky. You're probably not going to single-handedly determine our foreign policy. So I think you should, but you don't.
Thank you.
And you're not going to. So why do they care? Why not just let Thomas Massie be Thomas Massie in Northern Kentucky? Like, why the need to crush you?
I don't know. I think they don't want one horse out of the barn. If one person starts speaking the truth, they're afraid it could be contagious.
Exactly. So it's the like that meme that's been shown all over the place on social media for years now, where there's this group of people and there's this master in front of them and he's telling them to bow. He's got this whip or something. And then one guy stands up and then a few more stand up underneath. And then at the bottom, there's like 4 rows. It shows the same scene, but every time it changes, like there's more people standing up. And in the end, everyone stands up. And the guy who was the master before, he cowers in fear in the 4th reel, the bottom, right? So, or strip, whatever. So yeah, that's why they're very. You need to, if you lose control of the narrative, you lose the power that you have. Okay, so that's the thing. That's what he's saying there. So they don't want a single person to go against the status quo.
Perhaps. Or it's like a new car. They go to Mike Johnson and they say, we want a Cadillac, Escalade with pearl white paint. And here's the rims we want. And Mike Johnson puts that bill on the floor. It passes with a unanimous vote, except for one guy votes no. And I think they feel like it's a scratch on their car. They wanted a brand new car and it got scratched by this guy named Massie. They were going to drive it over to the Senate and ask for unanimous consent. But now the senators are saying, wait, why this wasn't unanimous in the House? Why should we do it unanimously in the Senate? And it starts raising questions. And I think that's why they get.
Yeah, it only takes one person to start questioning the narrative, and then it'll be like the domino effect, just you only need one and then you can go and the whole thing, the whole house of cards could fall. I mean, it is a house of cards. That's why they're afraid. I mean, if you would see, that's why truth is the most powerful thing in the universe, because truth doesn't need constant reinforcement and blackmail and all these shady tactics and so on. It just stands alone, all right, and it spreads like a virus, but like a good kind of virus, okay, but that it cannot be stopped, and it can spread very easily, much easier than a lie. And you don't need to continually prop up the truth because it defends the truth is its own defense, okay.
Mad.
What I find interesting is that it's not just that they disagree with your views, which they do, and I think they have an absolute right to disagree with anybody's views. We all do. But they've called you a bigot, and they call you an anti-Semite, and say you're a hater and try to destroy your character. That seems like a very different level of response to me.
Right. There's no need to do that. I'm not anti-Semitic. I don't have an anti-Semitic hair in my head, okay? I mean, I don't like Aipac anymore. Like I used.
That bloody word! I swear it's Orwellian. It's Orwellian, that word. Why don't? I was born in Melbourne, Australia, fortunately or unfortunately. So I'm very well versed with, and I've lived a big chunk of my adult years there as well. You can tell my accent is Australian, right? So, how could I put it? Melbourne is to Greeks what New York is to the Jews. Let me explain. I think the biggest percentage, percentage-wise, the biggest, like, how could I put it? I wanted to use a specific word, but anyway, 10%, roughly 10% of the population of Melbourne is Greeks. Okay, I don't think there's any other of the. I mean, of course, the original founding stock, the Anglo-Celtic stock, might be, I don't know, 70%. But the thing is, roughly 10% of the population is Greek, and it's a fact that the number one Greek city, as far as population goes, is Athens. Second one is Salonika or Thessaloniki, which is the second largest city in Greece and the capital of Macedonia, up in the north of Greece. And the third largest Greek city, like the where you find the third largest population of Greeks in, is Melbourne. Okay, around the world. So we're quite influential over there. The Greeks have got, they're all doing well. 99% of them are doing really well for themselves, and have got businesses and blah blah blah. And so I have seen, like, not as much, like, not to the extent of in a way that the Jews probably have faced. Well, that was a bad sentence, but I'll explain. The Greeks and every non-Anglo-Celtic race that emigrated there, even though we were white Christians, until the 70s, mid-70s, they had the white Australia policy, so only white Europeans immigrated there. But still, the Anglo-Celts didn't like them. They consider them, almost black, because, we were not Casper white. It meant that we were not the perfect European. So anyway, we faced a little bit of racism back in the early days, like in the 50s and so on. But then it was okay later. But I still have faced a little bit of this, like the equivalent, the Greek equivalent of anti-Semitism. There is a term. I believe, it even has a Wikipedia entry. Anti-Hellenism. I'm sure there's Islamophobia. There's all kinds of terms for, that denote, they mean, not liking a particular race. But we don't use it all the time. Like, every time somebody, like, said some slur or whatever, the Greeks didn't turn around and say, that's anti-Hellenism, blah, blah, blah. But with the anti-Semitism term, it's just so Orwellian. Like, the way it's used, it's used in such an Orwellian way. And it's clear that 90% of the time it's just used to shut people up and to smear people. Like, basically to guilt people or to bully people into doing what Jews want, what Israel wants, okay, what Aipac wants, basically. Really, that's what it is. I mean, what he's saying there, you look at his body language. I'm very good at reading people. Even if I'm watching someone off a video, I'll know whether they're lying or not. But and it's not very hard to do. You can just tell. You're like, this guy's not lying. And what I said before, when I went on this 10-minute thing explaining that I believe that Israel has the right to exist and that actually that is their ancestral homeland, I wasn't saying it to, to ameliorate, to soften the blow of what I said just a minute ago. In both cases, I'm just calling it for what it is. Like, Israel, I mean, am I a Zionist? Possibly. I even made a post on Twitter a couple of days ago. I said, am I technically, I guess that's like one of the definitions. Like, what is a Zionist? Somebody that believes Israel has a right to exist. Maybe, like, in that loose definition, somebody could call me that, but I never think of myself as a Zionist. I mean, I'm always complaining about it. I don't like the way they conduct themselves, like with it's a long story. This video could get really long if I get into this, but we know the drill. We know how it is. Ignoring so many UN resolutions and international law and stuff. Not now, like from the 60s onwards. Like it happened so many times. Israel, I mean, that's what they've done. And I'm like, well, loosely defined. I'm probably somewhat, Gene Simmons would probably, like, if he met, he would probably say, "You're probably a Zionist and you don't even know." That would actually, I might need therapy, to be honest, if someone told me that, because I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't, it creates cognitive dissonance in me. But it's their ancestral homeland. I believe this, okay, and they have the right to go back. Like, I mean, if someone told me, hey, somehow, somewhere, some kind of different Earth timeline, where hypothetically I was in the same situation, and there was no such thing as the nation of Greece at all, okay? And my only option was to remain in Australia forever. I would fight tooth and nail to make it happen, okay? To create a state, the new state of Greece, right? Hellenic state, because it's called the Hellenic Republic, technically. So I can understand the Jews, okay, with their love of Israel and stuff, but love for Israel, sorry. But it's just the methods of doing so sometimes that we don't like, okay? And we're allowed to say no, okay? It's a word in the dictionary. We can say no, you're not, I don't like that you're doing that, so I don't agree there, no. We're saying no, we're allowed to say no.
To be neutral toward Aipac, right? But I have no antagonistic feelings toward Jewish people. I am the last thing. I think I'm probably the least xenophobic person in Congress. I mean, these are the guys.
Same. I mean, I went to great lengths to explain that if I was in the same situation. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: I can't imagine a world, for me, for a Greek person, a world where there's no Greek nation, okay, nation we could call our own, where everyone's got those funny Greek surnames and nobody looks at you funny when you say your name and everything. You know what I mean? Like, basically, a race, a nation is like everybody's basically distant cousins, okay, because we're founded by one guy 5,000 years ago or whatever, and then 50 people emerged out of that, and then it turned into a village, and the village became a town, and then there were more other ones, and then they spread outward, and there were many cities, and then that thing became a nation, a country, over the course of whatever, a few thousand years. So, and you get really, really definite characteristics within a race, okay, yes, individualism, I know. We're all individuals, but there's also the racial mind. We have a group mind and an individual self, but then we also have a racial consciousness, which biologists after World War II tried to sort of sweep under the rug because they were afraid that, terrible race-based atrocities might happen again. But you can downplay DNA all you like, but it's BS. It's way more important than people like to give it credit. When I said what I mean is BS is to say that DNA is not real or that it's not as important. That's BS. So me living in a world where there's no nation of roughly 10 million people who are all Greeks, or almost all. We have some immigrants, but small amount, about 10%. So 90% of us are like from that original guy that the founder, we share certain characteristics that nobody else has, and therefore nobody else can understand. It's like being a member of a club. Like I'm a heavy metal fan, okay? It's like being a metalhead, or whatever, the people that, the Philistines that don't like this glorious music, the techno heads or something, or hip-hop fans. It's like being one of those things, or like having a team, sports team. Only the other team members can understand you. That's how race is, okay? Your people, they understand you. Like certain things like humor and stuff cannot be, like if I watch a comedy, Greek comedy, made in Greece by Greek actors, Greek director, there's no way known that can be translated and the person that's reading, like the English subtitles, would enjoy it the same as I would. Me, i.e. the person that's actually listening to it in the original language and understands all the slang terms and everything. It's like British humor, like it's got its own very unique thing. And I speak English, so I resonate. I understand British humor, but like if I was actually British, I would resonate and understand it and be better at creating it, at producing that type of humor, better than I am now. Because so that's the thing. So each tribe, each race has their own peculiarities that it's almost a necessity for their own well-being and their health and happiness and prosperity to be surrounded by their own kinsmen. So I think a world in which a nation of Greece didn't exist would be terrible. So I understand the Jews for wanting Israel, okay? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what lengths I would have gone to ensure that there would be the creation, to ensure that we would found the nation of Greece, okay, which was non-existent. Hypothetically, I'm saying, if that was the case. Sorry, I'm playing with the lid here of the thing. I understand that they want their own nation, and they should, and particularly it should be exactly in the same spot where the ancestral one was, Judea. But see, there's a lot of buts with this. That's the thing.
My colleagues want to sanction everybody, declare them terrorist states, come up with these strongly worded resolutions. I don't vote for any of that crap, right? Unless somebody does harm to me, I'm not going to call them anything.
Just got to say it. This guy's so based.
So I get called names just for staying out of all of this political posturing.
That's disgusting, though, isn't it?
I guess
attack your character. They can disagree with your views,
right.
but to call you like the worst thing you can be in America, like that's disgusting.
Yum. Bulletproof coffee. Just wanted you to know that I'm drinking bulletproof coffee in case some people might become inspired to start taking up keto.
I have a thick skin.
Apparently.
And here's the good news, Tucker. My constituents aren't falling for it. 2 weeks ago, I just had a primary and got 76% of the vote, with Aipac running hundreds of $1,000s of ads. So it's not working against me. I think it's short-sighted on their side to do this. They're just burning money, but they're trying to make an example of me.
But they're also exposing their weakness.
I think they are. I think they've exposed a real weakness here. And, it used to be just me voting against some of these resolutions, but recently where they tried to ban passages in the New Testament, I think we got like almost 24 Republicans who said, wait, hold on there.
Wait, can I ask a question, though? There's a fundamental question. So the Biden administration has put a bunch of people in jail for violating something.
All right, we'll stop there. I mean, they just, I pretty much made my point here. They keep going and going on and on about it, but Sorry, we're seeing the thing here because what I did is on this laptop, which is my laptop on which I make videos on, got another one for writing. I can't log into Twitter. It's a long story, but I can't go into Twitter, so I had to download the video. So sorry about the stuff underneath. So there's not much more to say, really. I wanted to keep this at about 30 minutes, so we're at about 45 now. It's not too bad. Some of my other ones are way longer. I hope this wasn't too long, but it was very important stuff to touch on. And again, I'll say, and I'm saying it just genuinely because of all the stuff I'm seeing on Twitter lately as well about all this, because you read both sides. Like I look at the pro-Israel people, the pro-Palestine people, what they say in their posts and stuff, and it's a never-ending rabbit hole. Like, you know, you click this and then you click that thing. It's like a domino, and you end up like on various links and YouTube videos and keep learning more and more. Although I've been down the rabbit hole almost 30 years now, it just never ends. I mean, one lifetime's not enough for even one of these subjects. So, you know, we've studied so many things, like us conspiracists, let's call it. So this was only but one of many topics, the Israel thing. But now, you know, we just get to learn more and more about it after October 7th. I mean, let's face it, Israel is kind of like in an impossible catch-22 at the moment, because any leader in the world couldn't have not attacked. Netanyahu or whoever in his position, they couldn't have just not retaliated. There's no way not to. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because if he didn't retaliate, that would be insane. You know, his people would turn against him. But he retaliates, and then much of the world turns against Israel. So they're in very big trouble now. I'm saying this from a neutral perspective. I'm not saying it as in, oh yeah, I'm so happy about that. Well, I'm not really. I mean, the way I talk now, people might think, oh, this guy's pro-Palestine. Oh man, listen, I've even said it on Twitter and Facebook. To be honest, I'm neutral. I really don't care about one side more than the other. I don't care. I really don't care, because who gives a shit about the Cyprus issue? Cyprus is an island, Greek island, formerly Greek island. It's like half Greek, half Turkish now. Mediterranean island to the bottom and to the right of Greece, well, closer to Israel. Most people don't know about it unless, you know, someone's like educated person that likes researching history and geopolitics and stuff, and might have an interest in Greek history and so on. Most people were like, what do you mean, what's Cyprus thing? What happened is the Turks in 1974, just out of nowhere, they just attacked Cyprus, which was fully Greek, and they just came in, started massacring, etc., and you know, nobody helped. I don't know the full story, but from what I've seen, and also Henry Kissinger had a hand in this. He was like the mastermind, so that's why a lot of Greeks really love that guy, or loved. Oh, but he's still alive, in my eyes. He will be immortal forever, the immortal king of the New World Order. So they took over. They wanted to take the entire thing over because they think they own. Because a lot of people don't know that with Islamic regimes, Muslim regimes, they believe that once they have taken over, like once a place has been theirs, like they've taken over a territory, even if they lose it, if the people rebel and so on, and they take it back, the Islamic belief, the Muslim belief is that once we owned it, it's forever ours. So then they get obsessed with going back and trying to retake it. This is why Erdogan hates Greeks so much, and he's constantly yelling at us and complaining. You know, what does he call us? the problem child of Europe or something, because they go crazy when one of their former territories frees itself. To them it's cognitive dissonance. They go crazy. It's like, no, this should be ours forever. It's what they believe. Okay, so they took over Cyprus, and eventually, I think, the bottom half is a Greek one, and the top half is a Turkish. So it's a very similar situation. The only difference with the with Israel-Palestine thing is that one side is Muslim, and the other side is Jewish. With Cyprus, it's like Muslim and Christian, okay? And in our case, we're Greeks. In Israel-Palestine case, it's the Jews versus Muslims. But it's a very, very, again, there's a lot of mirroring going on there with Greeks and the Jews. So it's a very similar situation. But percentage-wise, how many people in the world, particularly in the Western world, give a shit about or even know about the Cyprus thing versus how many people are fucking obsessed with the Israel-Palestine thing? You see what I'm getting at? So this is not normal levels of interest. Okay, it's been engineered into people. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, that sorry, I mean, I would love to be, instead of Greek Australian, I would love like dual Greek and American citizenship. I would absolutely love that. That's why it's on my Twitter handle. Like, I've got the Greek and American flag, although I haven't even set foot in America. But like I said, my heart is American. So, but no one cares in America. Like I said before, like, I love it, but it's the most ignorant people on earth. It's sad that that's the case, but it is the case. That's why they don't know. You, because I'm addressing Americans, I guess, yeah. You've been conditioned into thinking that this Israel thing is way more important than it actually is. Like I said before, I mean, I have no ill will against either party, but like, to be honest, I should be caring more about the Cyprian problem than the Israel-Palestine, okay? Because I've got skin in that game, in the first one, don't I? It used to be Greek, and these bastards in 1974, they came in and took it over just like that. Like, no warning, no reason, no rhyme or reason, just, used to be ours, so according to our belief, there's no such thing as you break away, you rebel, and you take it back. No, it's ours. They believe that. A lot of people don't know this, that's what Muslims believe, as far as, taken territories. So it's problematic, but no one. So the percentage of the people in the world that would know or know/care about that, compared to how many people are obsessed with the Israel versus Palestine thing, I don't know. It would be incredible. Like, probably like a 1 to 1,000 ratio. Like, maybe only 1% or 5% of people know about the Cyprus thing. And Israel and Palestine, pretty much everyone, every American, every Tom, Dick, and Harry in America has got a fucking opinion about it. Okay, you've been brainwashed into caring about it. You shouldn't. You're not supposed to. Probably they think because it's Jerusalem there and the Holy Land, and that's directly tied in with Christianity. That's why I guess the American right is so obsessed with it. It's not that they're necessarily, staying up every night in bed thinking, oh my God, those poor Israelis. They have, everyone's got their own agenda going. Like the Christian right, and there's more Christian Zionists than there are Jewish Zionists. That's a fact. We don't say that just to cover up our tracks, or say, oh, see, I'm anti-Zionist and there's more Christian Zionists, so don't blame me for anti-Semitism. A lot of people say that we say that there's more Christian Zionists for that reason. Even so, the point is that it is true that there's more Christian Zionists than Jewish Zionists. So that tells us, what does that tell us? That shows that it's the Christian churches that care about this even more than, because a lot of, like, the most anti-Israel people in the world, in America especially, also happen to be Jews. A lot of the leftist types, the leftist Jews, they're the main opposition to Israel. So it's a bizarre thing. Whereas me here saying all these things that, oh, I'm neutral, I don't really care, you know, I don't think AIPAC, AIPAC is sort of overreaching, I guess. And then at the same time, I'm saying that, you know, on the other hand, I believe that in Israel's right to exist because it's the ancestral land. So, sorry, it just makes sense, right? Yeah, sorry, I've got a bit of a throat thing, that's why I keep massaging it with my tongue. So I made that silly noise before. So I'm not reptilian, I assure you. So look, in all seriousness, the Americans have been conditioned, and they're only just recently waking up now, in the wake of Israel's extreme response after the October 7 attacks, and also the fact that just it's reached, like, the Overton window has gone like this. Okay, things you couldn't say at all even a year ago are all over the place now. I mean, the fact that Twitter bought Musk, that Musk bought Twitter, that basically changed the course of history. I mean, I know, I've seen all the stuff. They're complaining now that there's kind of, the censorship has begun again on Twitter, and there's some Israeli tech, the company that he wants to, that Musk is thinking of working with, where he's going to be asking for people's ID, home address, and everything for the creators, the people that are getting paid on Twitter. Was that going to happen on July, I think? So a lot of people are complaining about that on Twitter and saying, oh, he's owned by this and that. That's BS. I don't believe that. So the fact that he bought Twitter changed a lot of things, and now the Americans are waking up to something that pretty much the entire planet knew. All right. Like I said at the start, like, I love America, but come on. The ignorance is like, we look at you and we laugh. Literally, people are like, oh, like, there's phrases. We have phrase here in Greek. I've been hearing it all my life since I was like a kid. Stupid Americans. And I'm sure, like, every non-American country, the Russians in particular, you know, countries like that are traditional, like, opponents of America, they have their own equivalent phrases in their own language. Oh, stupid Americans. Like, we say that and we laugh, like, because it's not that, okay, look, America's the greatest country on earth technically because it's got the Constitution, it's got the First and Second Amendments. The past 100 years or so, like, 90% of the great inventions that created the modern world, like, you know, automobiles, airplanes, all this stuff, the internet came from there. Everything that's our modern world is basically from there. You're amazing, all right, in that sense, okay? It's the perfect system. Meritocracy, everyone's got, like, incentive to do better, that type of thing, that capitalist model that basically pushes people to create, to become, to give, like, you know, 110% at all times. I mean, it's kind of crumbling, the meritocracy thing now. Like, the far left is kind of destroying that slowly with DEI and all that shit. But really, overall, it's like the greatest country of the past 100 or 150 years or so, the greatest things that we have now in the world all come from there, all right? So I'm not one to denigrate America or Americans, but I'm just telling you the truth as an outsider who has seen what Greeks say about America, what Russians say, because I knew I had Russian friends as well in Melbourne, right? Everyone who's not American, even the English, you could say, oh, well, maybe the English, because we're Anglosphere, we're like cousins. No, even the English have no respect. Like, everybody looks at Americans like, oh, man. And then we look at each other and we're like, oh, well, they're Americans. You know, it's almost like, you know, what did you expect? You know, like, we'll look at them and like, what, really? They're falling for this? They don't know that all these that both sides, left and right, are controlled by the same handful of billionaire donors who have one singular agenda. And it's like the Americans are only just waking up to this, like en masse. I know that there was a percentage that has always known, but I remember like these conversations were like commonplace. It was like it was not controversial. It was a standard thing in my household and in all Greek households, I guess. And they're not even educated. My parents were like laborers that moved to, emigrated to Australia in the 50s and 60s. Because back then we did not have a brain drain. Only the least educated people moved to other countries. Okay, now it's the opposite. All our educated youngsters are leaving because there's no jobs for the educated here. But uneducated people being aware of the geopolitics of what was really going on, that there were secret societies, that were Freemasons, Zionists, all this stuff. I was hearing conversations like these in my house all the time since I was a boy, since I was in primary school. How many Americans in America obviously Americans would be in America, duh. How many Americans could say the same thing? Maybe 1 out of 10? In my culture, it's probably 9 out of 10 of people having those conversations. And Russians probably the same, and Germans probably the same, and French probably the same. You see what I'm getting at? So Americans are like unusually brainwashed and conditioned by these things, and now suddenly the stuff is coming out. And like, oh my God, they have handlers. Okay. Yes. Okay. They have handlers. Every congressman in at least in a Republican faction is basically an Aipac handler. Isn't it incredible? So it shouldn't come as a shock though. Like, I don't know why Americans are shocked by learning this. Like, the rest of the world's like, yeah, okay. It's like, tell me something I don't know. I mean, we didn't know specifically that they're like literally everyone had an Aipac handler, but it was kind of like, where there's smoke, there's fire. It was so obvious that there was some, there's a very high level, very tight control. And now it's been spelled out to us. He said in the video that they have handlers, Aipac handlers. He was the only one that didn't have one, right, as far as he knew. All right. So I'll end it here. Like, we went at about 1 hour. I think that's, sort of just within the limit. If I keep going, it will be a bit over long, but 1 hour is okay, I think. We covered a lot of important topics here, but yeah, guys, wake up. Don't be afraid of people calling you anti this, anti that. The rest of the planet basically has known all this stuff for decades now. And we were like, the fuck, what's the matter with these Americans? Can't they see the blindingly obvious? But clearly not, because unfortunately, because of the education system, okay, that the Rockefellers designed about 100 years ago, and just the way the mass media has brainwashed the previous generations. I mean, but now the past 20, 25 years or so that we've had internet, that was the thing that allowed the American public to wake up. But otherwise, if there was no internet and there was only like handful of TV channels and newspapers owned by the same 4 or 5 corporations that more or less had the same agenda, you never would have woken up. Okay? But it's a miracle. I mean, God gave us the internet, basically. Okay? It was a God-given thing so that the planet could wake up. Power to the people, that type of thing. So there you go. Now we're using it, and use it well. Okay? More revelations will keep coming. And hold your ground, and do not flinch. Don't listen to people when they say you're anti this, you're anti that. When they say that to you, my suggestion is this: say to them, you're anti-truth, because here I've got the facts. What I'm saying, and show them facts. Show them like some link, or print something out. Actually have a printout and carry it with you and say, look, okay. So if these are the facts and I'm just saying the facts, if you're yelling at me, calling me anti-whatever, you're anti-truth. And that's the biggest offense of all. You know, if someone is anti-truth, that's by default being anti-life. I mean, because truth is the thing, okay? It's the greatest ideal to strive for, truth, right? So if a person is anti-truth, I mean, there's no worse thing you can call someone, you know, an anti-truthite. Call them anti-truthites, okay? That's what we should start doing. Okay? That's about it for me. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed and felt you got something out of it, please share, like, and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter, because that's where all the fun is these days. I will see you soon.